Okay, my claim of fact, the new NFL stadium intended to be built right here in our midst is highly impractical. Many are excited about the Anships Entertainment Group's, or AEG's, new plan to build a massive stadium worth $1.2 billion here in LA County. It'll be able to seat 78,000, I'm sorry. However, the majority hasn't taken into consideration the many issues that the stadium could cause for the community. The estimated cost, if you didn't get that the first time, is $1.2 billion. It's planned to be paid in bonds, but it'll potentially create a debt and or will result in a burden on the taxpayers. Faulty claims have been made by AEG that are on shaky and unclear grounds that leave a lot of people questioning the validity of the company. For example, they claim that the stadium shouldn't produce too much traffic, as it'll only be a few games a year. But at the same time, they're promising to bring in many events which will produce tourists and revenue, because let's face it, tourists don't come to see football games very often. They'll produce tourists and revenue, but it's impossible to have one without the other. So the fact leaves the company with a now apparent duty is credibility. Neighboring cities intended to be for the stadium are Pomona, Walnut, Diamond Bar, and Rowland Heights. So you guys know that it's going to be right here. The impact that this could have on our community will result in potentially increased traffic, light pollution, and potentially increased crime rates. A lot of us students here commute, and we already know that we have to fight jam-packed traffic a lot of times on the 60, almost 7 days a week, and we realize that our area isn't compatible for NFL traffic that'll be resulting from this stadium. The results of such traffic will be negatively impacting on our area. Okay, about 8 years ago, Berkeley issued a study on the economic effect upon a city in which a professional ball field of such magnitude resides. The results were published and called Professional Sports Subsidy as Economic Development. The study was award-winning and essentially stated that only the owner of such a stadium would see most of the profit, also that cities who contributed to building the stadium ultimately ended up at a loss. Pretty much the only people that will make money from the stadium, what that says is, the only people that will make money from the stadium are AEG and the NFL. So a lot of times the city, we're ultimately losing in the sense that it's putting us out, we're not compatible for it, it's putting us out and it'll create a lot of traffic. It'll pretty much just, we'll end up at a loss. California already consists of multiple stadiums in which such events could be hosted. The building of Grand Crossing, it's what it's intended to be called, is also impractical and that the project is unnecessary. There's no need for such a stadium and it will cause more hardships for the community than give back. In conclusion, if you take into consideration all the elements of the situation, the budget, the convenience, and the necessity, most of us will find that as appealing as the idea may be, it's just much more of a hassle and waste and inconvenience, leaving it highly impractical.
All right, well, you do clearly state your claim. There's no setup of what the secondary issues are going to be. I think you need to clarify that you're talking about the Grand Crossing project at the beginning, because I think when people hear AEG, they're going to be thinking about the downtown construction, which all of a sudden, creates a completely different issue that you're talking about. The argument about the long-term bond costs and the impact that's going to have either on the local governments or the local economy, I think that's where your main factual claim is, and it needs to be developed a lot more. The only evidence that you actually present on that is that study that comes from Berkeley that talks about the cost issues in publicly financed stadiums and what the return is to the municipalities. I don't know the conditions of the Berkeley study. I think that's the closest that you get to something that's a really credible credible source on this. Otherwise, it's mostly inference based on speculative and hypothetical examples, and I think you need to have something a little more substantive than that. You sound like you're rushing during the presentation. Take a breath and catch up and make your point a little bit more clearly. All right, thank you. We have one more speaker.